Hello there. Today I want to dive into a topic that's more common in our everyday lives than we might want to admit: oversharing. Now, I promise this chat won't be a stern lecture, but rather a friendly conversation like chatting over a cup of coffee or tea, if that's more your style. After all, I've been guilty of this myself more times than I'd like to count. So trust me, there's no judgment here. Maybe the title alone has already caught your attention. Perhaps you're someone who tends to overshare, or maybe you've been on the receiving end of, well, a little too much information. It can be awkward, right? But it's also something we can handle with a bit of humor and understanding. In our time together, I'd like to explore what oversharing looks like in simple, everyday terms. We'll dip into some examples that might sound familiar and try to understand why people, including myself, sometimes feel the need to spill the beans on a bit too much. Lastly, we'll talk about why this tendency often leads to awkward situations and how we might learn to navigate them with a little grace and a dash of humor. So let's jump in. And if nothing else, we can all have a good chuckle about our shared human experiences. Sound fair? Great. Let's get started. Let's kick things off with an easy question. What is oversharing anyway? At its core, oversharing is when someone gives out more information than is considered appropriate or necessary in a given situation. It's that moment when you're at a dinner party and someone begins to tell a rather personal story well after the dessert has been served. You know, when the utterly inconsequential detail starts becoming a bit too much. I've absolutely been that person before. Oversharing often happens because we humans are social creatures. We naturally want to connect with others, express ourselves, and maybe even seek a little validation or sympathy. Sometimes our excitement or nervousness overrules our usual social filters. And before we know it, we've shared everything but our grandmother's secret cookie recipe, or in my case, my grandmother's southern cornbread dressing recipe. Let's face it, life isn't a perfectly scripted sitcom with well-timed commercial breaks to ponder our next move. It's full of unscripted, unguarded moments where occasionally we say more than we planned. Isn't it just charmingly human of us? Or at least that's what I like to tell myself after one of those conversations. Oops. Moving on, let's ponder a question that might make you nod knowingly. Why do we overshare? Often, oversharing stems from a genuine desire to bond and relate with our peers. It's like the verbal equivalence of extending a heartfelt handshake, sometimes a little too firm. Perhaps we feel the urge to fill a silence or believe that sharing a personal anecdote will spark conversation, empathy, or understanding. There's a charming innocence to this, isn't there? It's rather like trying to find common ground or exchange life tidbits like trading cards. But instead of, I'll give you one of my rare stories if you share yours, it spirals into a full biography reading. Guilty as charged, folks. In attempts to be approachable or relatable, we might talk about our day, our emotions, or our dog's quirkiest habits, forgetting that perhaps not everyone desires to delve into the intricacies of Rover's peculiar nap schedules. But there's honesty and rawness there too. It's these layers of shared humanity that remind us nobody truly has it all put together, even if we sometimes pretend otherwise. So next time you or someone else starts spilling the beans a bit too liberally, take a moment. Ask if it's a friendly handshake or simply an excited attempt to connect. There's a flip side though. Oversharing can land us in those foot and mouth scenarios. Ever left a conversation feeling like you'd inadvertently turned it into a dramatic monologue? Trust me, that's like a Tuesday for me. It's easy to cross that fine line from engaging into awkward territory without even realizing it. When you overshare, it can also result in unwanted advice or probing questions from the listeners who now feel compelled to comment. Sometimes people might expose their vulnerabilities hoping for understanding, but instead are met with unsolicited judgment or worse, indifference. However, this is all part and parcel of being human, right? Sharing is caring, and sometimes a bit too much so. But it's all in good spirit, hopefully. It's not about perfection, but about being real, even if that means laughing at ourselves a little. And trust me, I've become something of an expert at laughing at my own faux pas. One must hone their skills. So what's a person to do? Is there a subtle art to sharing that doesn't leave you cringing? Finding that sweet spot of sharing just enough without veering into TMI, too much information, territory, is a skill worth cultivating. It's about having engaging and meaningful conversations without feeling the need to share every detail of your latest doctor's appointment. Here's a neat trick. Think before you speak. Consider your audience and the context of your conversation. A good rule of thumb is if you wouldn't mention it in front of your grandma, maybe keep that tucked away at the dinner party too. It's perfectly fine to share your thoughts and feelings, but practice a form of self-awareness also. Consider if what you're about to say adds value or insight to those you're with. Does it entertain, inform, or enlighten? Or is it just filling a silence because the sound of it is unsettling? Remember, sometimes silence is golden and speaks louder than words. Oh, how I wish past me would have known this during so many social events, but hey, live and learn, right? In conclusion, oversharing is a playful part of human nature. Sometimes we're just trying to connect. Other times we're simply building up the legend of our life's drama, even if we're the only ones laughing at the joke. And sometimes we just don't know when to stop. But that's okay, because in these moments we might find humor, vulnerability, and connection in the most unexpected ways. So next time you feel the words flooding out, remember that it's okay to pause, laugh a bit, and maybe reel it in if need be. After all, that's what makes us relatable, and relatability is a beautiful path to understanding and friendship, overshares, and all. Thank you for joining me on this little journey into the oversharing universe. May your next social gathering be merrily awkward and perfectly imperfect. This is Bill saying bye for now.